Anime Specific Podcast.
Hello, everybody. It's the third episode of the Anime Specific Podcast.
Yes, indeed. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This should be the last podcast where my audio is so-so, for I purchased a pro mic. So bear with us if there's a little bit of a audio influx. It shall be redeemed by next episode.
Yes,
We're growing stronger.
and I've committed my own audio sins, because if you listen to the last episode on my mixer, I had the auto-tune on by accident.
Yes,
So you could hear I was sounding like, Cher, do you believe in love? That
I wish you would have broke out
song.
on that song. Yeah, I was waiting for it, but
Yeah, and this ties into putting our 2 episodes on YouTube.
yes, that's right.
I don't know, those algorithms. I'm sure I mentioned Cher in the show notes and stuff, and maybe in my Twitter. And if at least for me, if I click on that episode, like the recommended feed, I'm getting a few Cher videos, and I've never really listened to Cher before.
Give her a chance. She's
so,
great.
I
Her
mean-
stuff from the 70s is great.
Oh yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say I've never listened to any of it, but
Hey, that could be our theme song if I could turn back time.
yes. Okay, and our banner icon can be us wearing the costume that
Yes.
she wore during that music video.
Well-
That's the one thing I remember.
Well, I'm wearing that right now. So,
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
in honor of the coach of the show we're about to talk about.
okay, that's heavy, man.
Yes,
Oh,
very heavy.
speaking of heavy, what are we going to review today together? We're going to review the OVA Heavy from 1990.
Yes.
Which we'll talk a bit more about that in detail later.
Mhm.
But that's going to be very cool. But first, I just wanted to ask Regan. I wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
Are you into, or have you ever played any of the Super Robot Wars games?
No.
Okay, but you've heard of them, right?
Oh, yes, of course. I know they have like a plethora of characters and from all different genres, a super robot to real robot to made-up characters as well from the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically it's the closest you could get. If you remember Roger Rabbit seeing Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny share the screen, what a mind-blowing moment that was. Or that drug special from like the early 90s where Alf and the Turtles and everyone joined together to discuss the evils of drugs.
Muppet Babies represent.
That's right. Did for the Canadian version, who was the person at the start? Like, I know for USA it was Ronald Reagan, and for Australia it was then Prime Minister Bob Hawke.
That's
And
a good question. I'm not sure. It's probably Wayne Gretzky, I would guess, but
Yes, and he's
yes.
and
I
he's
honestly,
never touched drugs before, I'm sure.
Wayne Gretzky, of course, sir. He's whiter than white on rice. Like that guy is milk toast. No, that guy has never touched drugs.
Okay, no, I'm sure. No, I'm getting
Wayne
confused. I
Wayne
mean, I'm afraid-
Gretzky, come on,
No, he's really like straight as a pole, right?
of course. He's
Yes.
strict. He's too Canadian. He's too Canadian. It hurts. Yeah, he's very
Okay,
he's kind of square. He's straight laced. He's
Hmm.
by the book. Yes.
No, I just remember for that was it Cartoon All Stars or whatever it was called? Yeah, it was Prime Minister Bob Hawke, and I just remember don't take drugs; they're very bad for you. He had that way of speaking, and of course he was like a raging alcoholic, or at least he was for quite a bit of his life. But no, but anyway, back to Super Robot Wars. Yes, so one thing about Super Robot Wars is that every time they release a game and they feature one robot, sales for that generally go up,
Interesting.
like for the Blu-rays or the
Mhm.
DVDs and whatnot. So it's, it has really put the spotlight on a lot of older mecha anime,
Yes.
which is, definitely a good thing. Both of us are big mecha
So
fans.
so not just
And
model
what-
kits, but also the DVDs or Blu-rays of the shows. Are you saying like
That's
okay.
right. Yep. So one that the creators seem to really, really like is Daitan 3, which was one of the earliest Tomino
Daitan?
anime.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a so I got the Blu-ray rips of that,
Oh, excellent.
and it looks absolutely amazing, because that show was also really, really popular in Italy as well. Again, huge in Italy. So I think like the Italian Blu-ray might have even come out before the Japanese one, but the Japanese one is out now. You know, I'm thinking of buying it, but it's really expensive. But I want to see if the show is actually entertaining at first. So I've downloaded that, and I'm going to give that a watch. So I hope to. It's like 40 episodes long.
And that's Camino.
So
That's directed by Camino.
yes, that's right. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that one. I mean, from what I've seen and from what I've read about it, it looks pretty amazing. You know, it's like James Bond if, you know, halfway through the movie he jumped into a giant robot. So I mean that sounds great.
Yeah, I have it. I got the original rip of that years ago. So I don't know the
Yeah,
quality.
Manly Subs.
Yeah, I don't know the quality.
The quality, like maybe at the time it was good,
Mm,
but I downloaded that so I could rip the subtitles from it and apply it to the Blu-ray rips, which are raw.
yeah.
And luckily they're perfectly synced. I don't need to worry about that. But yeah, I mean it's night and day. It's chocolate and poo.
Oh yes, yes.
Because you know the DVD was old and washed out and whatnot, and I'm sure it, you know, Super Robot Wars coupled with its popularity in Italy probably ensured that it got a really pristine uh, release. So
And it
you know that's.
was it successful in Japan, or it wasn't very?
I mean, yes. I mean, from what I am told, it certainly was. Like it was. It's considered at least important in the pantheon. Like if you're a real Tomino fan, you've got to check it out.
Mm, mm.
It's not like if you look at something like Ideon, which is still, you know, very fondly remembered and often talked about. I don't think it's quite at that level.
Mm.
But I mean, speaking of Super Robot Wars, like I've played quite a few of them now, and early on, like I just played fan translations of it. So the first one that I ever played was Super Robot Wars J, which was released on the Game Boy Advance, and I got a ROM of that, and I've got it playing it through an emulator on my tablet using a controller.
So
And
was that released in North America, or is that a Japanese release only, or that was also released in North America?
no, because it's a licensing nightmare. So
Mm.
they've always been Japanese only releases.
Oh, okay. So you get to get the
Or
fan
at least,
subs,
you know,
kind of like playing Mother
yeah, the
3.
Asian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did do a fan translation of that. So that was the first one I
Cool.
played, and I mean, in retrospect, it was definitely not the best of the Super Robot Wars. Maybe the technical limitations and whatnot, but I mean that one had Tekkaman Blade. It had you know, usually all the because Bandai, who are the developers, also own Sunrise, so they don't have to go through all the legal hoops to do that. So you get a little bit less of the other
Lasner.
studios stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, Go Nagai stuff is always there. You got Mazinger Z, and you've
Mhm.
got you know, Great Mazinger and
Getter
whatnot.
Robo.
Get a Robo. But one of the things that was featured quite prominently in Super Robot Wars J was have you ever seen the anime of Hades Project Zero Rhymer?
Yep. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean that is something that came out, you know, 30 plus years ago,
Mhm.
and Zero Rhymer, as he appeared in several games, especially Super Robot Wars J, is apparently like the most OP, the most overpowered of all the mecha that ever featured in that game.
Interesting.
And I was just thinking, like, as I've looked in different toy shops and stuff, of which there are many in Hong
Mhm.
Kong, and whenever I go to Japan, I go in there. There's always a lot of Zero Rhymer stuff, and I'm thinking, you know, this is something that had a one-volume manga, you know, almost 40 years ago.
Mhm.
It had an OVA, and that was pretty much it. And a sequel manga. But somehow this robot, this mecha, and this title has remained kind of in the mecha's fan zeitgeist for all these years. There must be something kind of special about it.
Mhm.
And for a long time, like the original OVA was a blind spot for me,
It's pretty good.
and I ended up. I mean,
I like
like
it.
technically,
Yeah.
it's a masterpiece. Like I mean,
Mhm.
the animation, the art, everything.
But it's very
is
small.
fantastic.
It's not like a world. It's like an OVA. It's like a small. Was it an OVA? Yeah.
Yeah, 4-episode
Yeah.
OVA.
And that's it, right? So
That's
not much
that's
to go
right.
on,
And
right? Yeah.
no, and it completely deviates from the manga. Like it totally deviates. And the manga was actually created
Classic.
by Yoshiki Takaya, who created the Guyver.
Classic OVA
Right, and-
maneuver.
and-
Do something completely
Yes,
opposite
that's
of the
right.
manga, and you're like, what the hell?
Well, I can understand why in this case, because the manga, again, yes, it's very fondly remembered, but it featured in a manga, like a monthly manga
Mm.
compilation magazine called Lemon People.
Uh-oh.
And
Don't say that word.
yeah,
Whoopsie.
Yeah, it is.
I know lemon.
I mean, yeah, it's
The bad boy word.
basically a hentai magazine, which is fine, but it sort of evolved into a very heavily with a heavy focus on Lolita stuff.
Yeah.
So
Risque. Let's
yeah,
put it that way. Risque.
and so in my quest to try and look up the manga for this
Mm-hmm.
and see what it was like, because a lot of people said yes. I mean, it is basically it has a lot of pornographic content. Again, like I don't have any problems with that.
Yeah.
They said it's worth it for the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I found some scans of Lemon People online,
Mm.
and I felt so like I should be put on a list, after perusing
Well,
through
you
it
do live in
because
Hong Kong, but I'm dumb. Sorry.
yeah, well, yeah,
Too soon,
the
too soon.
police
Yeah.
are,
Sorry, sir.
especially in the past few months, the
Yeah.
police. Let's just say
Yeah.
I'm not their biggest fan.
Not to make a
but
joke. Sorry, Hong Kong people. It's just,
no,
it's all
no,
in
no,
jest.
no,
Yeah.
no. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. Um,
But yeah, I know what you're saying.
uh,
It's definitely like that, and I know how you feel. Is you kind of have a confliction. Like for me, I'm like, oh, well, as an anime historian, I want to have the first OVAs, in history. But then you look at the names you look at the content of the first OVAs, and you're like, hopefully I don't get arrested for this. So you're like, do I
yeah,
want
uh,
to? Yeah, exactly. I know how you feel. You're like, Japan is weird.
but
Japan is weird. You're like, Japan is
yeah, but I
weird.
mean, like,
Yeah,
what I mean is like, it's
it's
not even
sketchy, and
like,
it's sketchy for your own heart and soul. You're like, okay,
well,
yeah,
like just to give an example, like it
morally,
wasn't like
yeah,
Ray, there's like Ray Ayanami from
yeah. Cream.
Evangelion. I mean,
Mm.
that's a bit different because like I watched Evangelion when I was 15 and she was 15.
Yes,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
Mm.
But what I like, the one that was just before um, Zio Rhymer, like in the same issue, it was literally like this fat old otaku,
Awesome.
and he was basically what's the word, they grooming these two kids,
Great.
like, and I don't mean like young teens, I mean like
You mean giving them a haircut?
6-year-olds.
Yeah.
I wish
Yeah.
that was the content. I truly wish that was it.
Mm.
But it was just a straight up no,
Mm.
no, this is a vampire that's 3,000 years in the body of an 11-year-old or something. None of that. It's just a straight up grooming young kids, and I just felt
Mm.
like so creeped out by
Well,
that.
that's that's
That I
always been
just
a kind of a weird Japanese cultural thing. It's just kind of weird, and it's really
yeah,
it's like a Japan only thing, and it's really strange. Like especially in the 80s, you get that a lot in the 80s where it's kind of an acceptable thing. Like now it's getting a little bit better, but it is definitely
oh yeah, it's
culturally for
changed
me. I'm
quite a
like,
lot.
it's kind of weird, hey? Yeah. What's up with
Yeah,
that? What's up with that?
yeah,
Question mark.
it's yeah. I mean, uh,
It's weird.
yeah, I know, and so what I did was, so I wouldn't feel dirty, was that I actually
Hey, wait.
ordered.
You took a shower to make yourself pure again, so you could cheer for Guy for his upcutting
Yes,
upcutting fight.
I like that reference. Yes,
Wash myself
yes,
pure.
I was Lily.
Yeah.
I was Lily. That's
You
right.
washed it.
And you guys are going to understand what I mean
Yeah.
when we discuss it. But yeah, basically, I ordered the manga, the compilation of the manga. I ordered it. Obviously, it was secondhand. I ordered it from Japan, and it got shipped to my home. So I am now the proud owner of the compilated Zio Rhymer manga, which is all in Japanese.
And how is
obviously,
Zero
so it's
Rhymer?
going
How
to
is it in regards to like creep factor? 1 to 10. What's
Uh,
the level?
yeah, I mean it's salvageable from what I've seen. The main female character definitely looks like she's under 18, but at least
What?
high school age.
So Jane, why was that? Why was that a big thing in Japan? Like, why in regards to like hentai and stuff? Why was that like a big? Do you have any
I think
insight on that?
just from what I read, the story and the mecha design,
Mhm.
really, it appealed to mecha fans, basically.
Mm.
And so I'd definitely like to know more about it, and I do intend on sort of reading it. It's going to be laborious because I can't really read Japanese, but there are ways around that, obviously.
There's no fans scandalation.
No, there's not at all. So, although I did look online, and someone, I think he was discussing it in a forum, and he translated a few pages, but
Okay.
overall, yeah, the whole thing isn't.
So the manga was
Um,
popular in Japan, but obviously with people over 18, obviously, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, one would assume.
Yeah.
Uh, but yes, it certainly was. I mean, and to be sure, like a lot of classic stuff and classic creators did put stuff in Lemon People, absolutely. But yeah, there
Like
was
a lot of the original OVAs were hentai, right? Like I think the first one ever was called Lolly Anime or Lolita Anime. I think
yeah,
that's the first OVA
yes,
ever.
that's right, Lolita. Yeah,
Starting things off on a good foot. Like I know Dalos is basically the first legit OVA, which isn't pornographic, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, no, lots of pretty famous artists were
Mm-hmm.
did stuff in there, and LPO Play. Did I say that her name right? From Gundam Double Zeta Gundam. She was actually named after L People. She was basically a somewhat of a lolly character named, you know, in homage
So checking out Zero
to.
Rhymer, what is it that you like about it? What is it? What is it that's appealing to the masses, like that made it popular? What do you think?
I think it's perhaps it was just that it was a delivered in an unconventional way, coupled with a super powerful mecha and the mecha design. I mean, obviously, um, Yoshiki Takeya, he is only known for these two titles, really, Guyver and Zero Rhymer. And Guyver has famously just languished, for years and years without a proper ending, and people are quite frustrated at that. But he's someone that's had so much success with that, he really doesn't have to do much.
Yeah, and I mean,
So I mean,
Guyver is, I would say, is massively more popular. Would you not say around the world?
yes, around the world, absolutely, yeah. Guyver has a lot of hardcore fans, and I I've never actually read it. I know I have a friend who's a huge fan of it, but he's also extremely angry. He likes Guyver and Berserk, and those are two ones that he just thinks are never going to get finished.
He has
So,
good taste.
you
Yeah,
know,
I enjoy
yes,
Guyver
he
and Berserk
does.
too. Yeah, they're both great.
Yeah, but
Mm.
and I bought all the original, the original OVA of Guyver that came out, back in the 90s. At
Mhm.
least it was through Manga Video for me, and that ended kind of halfway, or not even halfway, like a quarter of the way through.
Hades Project
And
Zero Rhymer. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
so yeah, I'm going to try and find out more about that because I just see toys for this all the time. They're still pumping out merchandise for it. There's something to it. There must be something to it. And as a mecha fan, I can never get too much mecha.
Well, I mean,
So
some of these mecha designs for Zero Rhymer are like crazy. Like if you look at the Great
yeah,
Zero Rhymer, it's like that's a crazy mecha.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the Guyver is another one that has toys. I actually have a little, like a chibi version of Guyver, of the Guyver laying around somewhere. So that's one of the first, like that was a proper model kit. But I'm not very good at painting, so I just gave it to my neighbor and told him to paint it, and he gave it back to me. It looked great. So yeah,
Yeah, Guyver's is really a
okay,
cool show. I love
yeah,
Guyver. Yeah.
yeah, and it's one of the few that has an American adaptation that's actually good, at least in my opinion. Like Guyver, the sequel, Guyver Dark Hero. Have you ever seen that?
Well, Luke Skywalker's in it.
He's in the first one, yes, which was and originally, like in Australia, it was called Mutronics,
Mm.
kind of a stupid name, but it was later renamed the Guyver. But then there was a sequel, which was like a hard R. So the first one was kind of a PG-13 film,
I only saw the
yeah,
first
with
one.
Mark
I
Hamill.
only saw the first one.
I mean, the first one is still, good, wacky fun,
Hmm.
but the sequel is a straight up hard R, and
Mm.
the budget wasn't very big, but the production design was really really good, like the suits and the costumes and stuff. I mean, I like honestly, unironically, really love Guyver Dark Hero.
I'll have
So
to check that out.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, be sure to check out like the 2 hour version because the version that like I first saw it at the video store in Australia, and yeah, that version was 2 hours, and then later on, like a DVD came out, and that was like a cut 90-minute version, and apparently in the US they only ever had the short version, but now it's out. I think there's an HD version out on Amazon, and that one is like the 2 hour version.
Mm.
So that one's a lot better.
Yeah, Guyver is definitely in need of a new series. It would be nice to get a new Guyver. That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, there was the TV series that
Hmm.
came out, but that was already like 15 years ago
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Um,
And I wonder how many
but
of these volumes are released in North America.
for the Guyver,
Yeah. Are they
yeah,
completely
I
caught up?
mean,
I don't know.
I'm not exactly sure about that, but the scanlations, like there's scanlations all the way up to the last volume, which was 32, I believe.
Hmm.
So yeah,
I wonder.
but it's one I'll have to check out. Yes. So anyway, moving along to our next topic, circumcision. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just going to
Well, I
pause
was
it for a second.
circumcised when I was 10. No, I'm just joking.
Really?
I'm just joking.
Okay, let's talk about
No, I'm just
circumcision.
joking.
Okay. All right.
That happens to some poor
Keep the
boys.
tip.
That happens to some poor boys in the Philippines.
I
What
know,
the fuck?
I know. I can't believe it. Are we,
It's crazy
okay.
shit.
All right. Everyone, it's time for circumcision. The circumcision segment. Okay, play the theme song. What's the theme song?
I don't mind spending every day without my foreskin in the pouring rain. Look at
Yeah, I knew someone that married a Muslim lady, and he was like 30, and the family, very cool. They didn't mind his religious background because he's a nice guy and stuff. But they said, look, we just ask that you get circumcised. So
Weird. Were they of the Jewish faith?
no, like the guy was I don't know, a Catholic. He was Catholic, which
Oh, and
usually they're circumcised.
and
but
he married a
wasn't.
Muslim lady?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, and their thing they're asking is for him to get circumcised. Really?
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
right.
gosh. I would have been like, okay, and then I'd just tell my wife, like, just don't tell him. They won't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd probably just like buy a ham sandwich and take the ham out and
So did he
and
go
just
through
take
with
a
that?
photo of him. Apparently, he was going to.
Oh man. What a
Yeah.
trooper. He must really love his wife. Well,
Yeah, that's
wow.
right. Yeah,
That's dedication.
yeah. I'd
Right?
I'd like go to a tannery or something
Oh,
and make it into like a engagement ring, like a leather circumcision ring or something.
yes, it's a true ring of
Okay,
dedication.
just to,
That's
just
a
for
promise
everyone,
ring.
just for everyone listening, I was actually
damn.
I just said circumcision so I could say something silly and then stop and then save what we've recorded so far. But I'm kind of tempted to keep this in the show. So
Yes, and I said I feel sorry for the poor Filipino guys who get circumcised when they're 10 years old. Like, what the fuck? That's a
Why?
thing. That's a common thing in the Philippines. That's crazy, man. Oh, God bless them. Good luck.
yeah, is there some ceremony around it?
I don't know. It must be a Catholic thing. I don't know, but
And thus ends another epic episode of Circumcision Talk, hosted by those precocious penile professors, Dane and Regan.
searching for love.
in fan subbing the Polish version of Witcher, which is a show everybody knows from Netflix, but there was an original show, and that's sort of how your fan subbing experience started. Am I right?
Yes, that's right.
Or was it before that?
I probably dabbled in stuff before, but that was the first project I handled and worked on myself.
Yeah, and McBobby fan subs finished that show. My brother said it was great. I haven't watched it yet, but it's really an interesting topic because of how popular Witcher has become. But I mean, it just shows you the world of fan sub. It's not just Japan, but definitely that's sort of where you really got the fire for your fan subbing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was called Bubby Subs, and I'm just seeing if the WordPress site is probably still there. It hasn't been updated in years. Oh yeah, it's still there. Gee, it looks.
Any new comments? Any new comments?
Okay, well, I'm.
Let's see. Let's check the
Well,
Bubby.
the last post was Red Photon Zillion, which was what
Ah, yes.
you, of course. For those that don't know, Reagan reached out to Anime Classics and got the rest of the scripts for it, which weren't timed yet because
Yes.
Exodore had kind of bowed out at that stage. So
Yeah, Exodore was done with it, and I said to him, I knew the scripts were done, so I just said to him, are you gonna complete this? And he said, no, I'm out, I'm done. I think he was moving. I can't remember exactly
yeah,
what's going on, but
he's
he
in
was doing
Germany
something.
now. He moved to Germany.
What's that?
He moved to Germany.
Yeah, and what was he doing? Was he doing something in regards to subtitles?
Well, no, he was working. Actually, he got me a little job for a while. He was working for I think like Manga Gamer, which handle a lot of English hentai games and stuff, and they needed someone to fix some like to go into the script and edit some of the grammatical mistakes and stuff, and I did that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I mean now I'm not exactly sure what he's up to, but
But he was a cool cat, and he was part of a really cool fan subbing group.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of anime. Was that Anime Classics, right?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And
And those guys were great guys, and props to Exodore and Anime Classics. We still remember and are thankful for your awesome efforts. Your fan subbing lives on. Rock on, dude. And thanks for those scripts. He gave us the scripts, and then I was like, oh, what am I going to do with these? I gave them to McBubby, and the rest is history.
So I had forgotten, like, there were some pretty cool projects that, and they're not even posted on my blog here, but apart from Zillion, I headed this fan sub of this Swedish Crusader film called An Templariddaren, An the Knight Templar, and this guy called
interesting.
Hampus translated it for us and released it on the eDonkey network. Then there was the Violence Jack OVA series, which I had
Yes.
I had gotten. Yeah, that was based on the Italian version. That was a pretty, not bad, but a pretty rough kind of translation there.
Yeah, and I actually got the official Critical Mass version, which was completely uncut
Yep.
with the fan subs. I did get that on VHS. I sent that to Daryl Surratt.
Yeah, and from what
we
I
put
heard,
that online too.
you bought like
Yeah.
100 copies, and you thought you'd be able to sell them at cons and stuff, didn't you? I remember this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bought a big box of Violence Jack. I didn't buy for that reason, but I just wanted to get it.
Right,
And,
yeah.
It was hard to find the Critical Mass version, so
Yeah.
for some reason I bought like a box full. And yeah, I had a friend who sold anime, and he worked with this guy at the local anime store. So we tried to sell some at the Anime Con and made $10.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, that's cool.
it's depressing.
Yeah.
Nobody cared about Violence Jack.
Yeah. Well, there were
Oh well.
26
I
comments
did.
on my blog about it. So
Yeah.
obviously, The Witcher. Yeah, I mean that was the biggest one, but there was also this film based on these old comics called Heubu, The Castle Spirit, which was a German film, which I think Zillion, no, was it him? Someone translated that for me, and I released the fan sub of that as well. So,
You're into some interesting things. Like I've never heard of any of these things.
well, I liked medieval or fantasy kind of stuff that was obscure, at least obscure to the English-speaking world. It was just a little interest I had. It's not something I've really touched for a long time, until obviously the last one that I worked on just then was Heavy, which we'll discuss in a minute, and which I guess
Yes.
I'll post the link to where I uploaded it on the show notes because it is worth checking out. But of course, I forgot to introduce it. This is our new segment on what fan subs we're looking at. Obviously, a lot of classic anime is being released commercially now, but there's still a great need for fan subbing these classic shows, especially shows that never left the analog realm. And I'm including Laserdisc in that, of course. Laserdisc, VHS. There's just a lot of stuff that never made the jump to digital. And
Oh yeah, yes.
I
yeah.
just feel that we need to put the spotlight on those and work to preserve those as much as possible. So
Yeah, shows that would be lost in time, literally, if people didn't pick them up and release them. Interesting gems, things that I never thought would see the light of day. Things like I remember hearing about the Starship Troopers OVAs. And I
Oh,
was like,
yes.
what? There's a Starship Trooper OVAs, and just seeing that little picture and just a wonderment about it. It's so
Yeah.
interesting to see these cool little shows that were released in Japan, and you never think you're ever going to get to see them, and then it's so amazing to get to see them. It's just we're spoiled. So there's so many things, great things being released now, and that have been released thanks to fan subbers. So all hail fan subbers,
yeah,
for sure.
that's right. So I hope, if not every episode, then on a semi-regular basis, we would discuss a group and focus on one particular release from that group each time. So for this time, I wanted to, and I think we're probably going to discuss the same group, but it's Inca Subs, which is inca-subs.net. And the title that I wanted to spotlight this time was Shonan Baku Sozoku, which actually
Yes.
did get released. I don't think all episodes got released, but and Animego released the first episode of the 12 episode OVA. Like I'm quite a big fan of.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I'm just a fan of the biker/delinquent genre, which it seems almost nobody outside of Japan is, but it's just one of those things that I've always liked. I don't know why. It's had some appeal to me, but I just remember that was it Robert Woodhead of Animego? I think he said that when they released that one, I think they called it the Bomber Bikers of Shonen, or they gave it some strange, interesting name. But
Hmm.
that apparently, like, that was the worst seller in their history. And when I say it didn't sell, I mean like it might have sold double digits. It didn't even reach 100 sales or something insane like that.
It was like me trying to sell the uncut version of Violence Jack at the Edmonton Anime Con.
Yeah, that's right. So
$10, please.
yeah,
Thank you, sir.
so
12 hours later.
yeah,
Well, let's go home.
so I'm personally appealing to any arsonists that live in the air. No, just kidding. No calls to violence.
Listen, I want to tell you guys, I still have copies of the VHS Critical Mass mail. I'm sure we can make it happen.
Yep. And but you have to reserve for your kids for when they turn 12. Of course, Violence Jack is
Yes, you're a man now.
great tween viewing.
Daddy, why did that man eat that woman after her head got cut off?
Wait,
Well, son,
Why was she
it's
a
part
woman
of
and now she's
becoming
actually not a woman? Yeah,
it's part of becoming a man, son.
yeah.
You'll understand when you get older. Yeah.
But anyway, yes. So Shonen Baku Suzoku.
Yeah, you know what? I got to tell you, I've seen that show around, and I've always just been like, I haven't checked it out. It looks like nice animation.
Gorgeous,
But
very
like
good
you
color palette as well.
Yeah, it reminds me of that other show. What's that show? Maybe this is stupid, but you know that show which is kind of like Hokuto no Ken, but they're at school. What
Oh
was that show?
yes.
It's like really silly, but they're like it's like if
Sakigake
Kenshiro was.
Otojoku, right?
Is it similar? Do you think the animation, or am I?
Well, I mean, they're very different titles because Sakigake Otojoku was kind of a gag manga
Yes.
that ended up, but it got really serious towards the end, but I mean, basically a lot of those sort of high school delinquency kind of that genre, they have those Yankee haircuts and have those long cape uniforms.
So maybe
It's like,
is that what I'm seeing? Is that why I'm kind of
oh yeah, I mean,
connecting
if
the
you
two?
look at something like Bebop High School, Sakigake Otojoku, and Shonen Bakuzozoku, yeah, you'll see a similar style and
Okay.
a similar uniform because that's associated with both the bikers and the delinquents. But
You know what? I just want to tell you, I'm looking at screenshots of the show and I'm saying to myself, why the hell have I never watched this? Looks
Sakigake
amazing.
Otojoku,
No, no, Shonen.
Bakuzozoku,
Yeah,
yes,
Bomber Bikers of Shonen. This looks
yes,
amazing. Like this is like 80s tastic. This looks
oh,
great.
absolutely, and
Oh man, I'm gonna watch
80s
this. Thanks, Dane.
80s OVA. No, it's fine. They've only released up to episode 3, but they're going to keep going. I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
you know what? Good call. Inca Subs is a really cool fan sub group. I like how they're doing unique shows, which I always love. That's my favorite fan subbing groups are the ones that do something that not everybody else is doing, or do something that hasn't been released like 1,000 times. What's the point
yeah.
of re-releasing a show that's already been done? I hate that. Oh, we
Yes.
changed
Yeah.
the font to white. Good
Yeah.
job,
Oh,
guys. Thanks.
we added honorifics for those of you that don't speak Japanese but like to pretend you can.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, the Inca Subs, this is one of those groups that's like I didn't know about, but man, Galvion, like they have some great releases. Yeah.
yeah.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan. A group that I want to bring up is M Subs, who are always amazing. A show that I'm really excited about that they're subbing is Galactic Patrol Lensman, which,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's an amazing show that I actually thought I'd never get to see. Of course, we all know the movie Lensman. It's sort of a polarizing movie. I mean, fans of the novels don't like the film, but I love it. I think it's such an amazing film. I love its crazy CGI, and I love its character design, and it's just a fun fantasy. It's really what makes 80s sci-fi and anime fun. It's a lot
Yeah.
like Cobra in that way, where it's serious, but it's also fun. It's just a zany, fun show, and I'm kind of holding off on Lensman. I'm waiting till they finish the whole show. Hopefully
Well,
they
the
will.
problem
Yeah.
the problem with Lensman is like, yeah, again, I love the film, and the
Yeah.
TV series actually aired, and it re-aired in Australia.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I was floored because I think it was like in Australia they have the no rating season is around December, right? That's when
Can you
it's
say that
not
again?
basically, when they stop measuring the ratings or something. I'm speaking 90s talk, right? Because I haven't lived there in decades, and TV and stuff has changed. But basically, when they
Huh?
would, I don't know. Basically, it's not ratings season. Ratings season has ended, so they have a season for measuring the ratings and and giving the ratings to advertisers and stuff. So at Christmas, around Christmas, because in Australia it's summer during Christmas, right? So the summer
Weird.
holidays.
That's satanic. You definitely guys are down under. That's crazy, man. Summer, Christmas time, that ain't right.
Yeah,
You
well,
Australians
imagine
are
you
weird.
still have all the Santa imagery and stuff, but yeah. So
Where I live, it's
during
winter
that-
all the time.
that's just how I'd like it,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Oh god.
But yeah, so I mean, during that time is when the really interesting, funky, like I'd get excited at that time because they would air the cool sort of funky stuff because they don't care about ratings during that time. It's the end of the ratings season.
I don't want to interrupt you, but is Around the Twist, is that from Australia?
Yes, it is. Yes.
That's a weird show, man. That show tripped me out. That's a weird show. Australians are zany.
Have you ever felt like
like
this?
this? Yeah. That's
Strange things happen when you're going down the twist.
American
Yes,
listeners, I wonder if you've seen that. You're not part of the Commonwealth, so you may not have been blessed by that show. But that's a wacky show. Any American listeners, let us know in the comments on YouTube or in the email if you've seen Around the Twist. That's a fun show.
Yeah, it was popular when I was at high school, I remember.
That's a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, I never actually saw that one. But
What? That's an Australian call out. Yeah,
well,
an Australian call out, mate.
there was an Australian TV show, like an afternoon, like post-school block show that I used to watch called The Miraculous Mellops, and that was this cool kind of sci-fi kind of show.
I haven't seen that.
No, that one, that was one I really got into. But anyway, yes, so at the end of the rating season, it meant that they put on experimental stuff or stuff that they knew probably wouldn't get big ratings, which tended to be sci-fi and fantasy stuff. So I used to love that season. Of course, they put shit on like Major Dad, which no one in Australia gave a hoot about.
Haven't seen that.
They had this Agro's Cartoon Connection, and Agro was this wombat puppet. And it's really funny because if you look up Agro bloopers on YouTube, there's him swearing his head off and basically sexually harassing his co-host. But Cartoon Connection would still air, but they would show some older stuff.
So what is, first of all, what is Cartoon Connection? Is sort of like a block, kind of like how NBC Saturday morning cartoons in America, or
yeah, it was a block, and the interstitial parts was the Agro show, and he would, coming up, let's watch whatever. So
let me ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. Was there any like Australian made shows? Like in Canada, we had like the raccoons. We had shows that were actually animated in Canada. Did you guys have that? Was there like Kangaroo Joey or something, or the Bionic Boomerangs? Did you guys have any kind of like Australian cartoons?
Bionic Boomerangs. I'm copywriting that.
Ranga Johnny and the Kangaroo Boomerangs.
Well, they're like during the 80s, right?
Sorry, Australians, by the way.
There was the Australian wave or whatever it was called, right? Like where in the USA, Australian stuff suddenly became very popular, but Australian new wave or whatever. But one of the defining things of that is that there were some movies that were made in Australia, but no one in Australia had heard of them, but they were big cult hits in America, like Dead End Drive-Thru.
Oh, Dead End Drive-Thru, Mad Max.
No, Mad Max was the first one. Was not really popular in America, but it was popular in Australia. It was the second one that got.
That is the best. Yeah, Mad Max 2 is the best film.
I'm cut between that and the fourth one, and I love the first half of the third one, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. The first half is good, and then you're like, what?
Yeah, until the director he went off, and then.
The long ago.
Yeah, but
like,
yeah. So, but every episode had of an American TV show had the Australian episode where the characters go to Australia, right? And it was always funny to see how wrong they'd get it. And I think the worst one, and I will answer your question about Australian cartoons, but the worst one for sure was the Karate Kid. I don't know if people remember, but there was a Karate Kid animated spin-off cartoon show called The Karate Kid.
I don't remember it, but it sounds familiar, but I don't recall the show.
Well,
it's all a haze. Captain Caveman, Mr. T, that car that turned the boy that turned into a car. I think it's called Hot Wheels or Hot Rod. I can't remember.
Yeah, there was an episode of the Karate Kid TV show where they went to Australia, and because basically Daniel and Mr. Miyagi are looking for this mystical shrine that was stolen, and basically. Cool. An Australian Aboriginal tribe had come upon the shrine and, "Oh mighty tree god," it was extremely insulting to native Australians.
That sounds
And-
about right, mate. That sounds about
Yeah.
right with those
And-
abos.
And yeah, and that the word abo was used in the episode. "Oh, I'm an abo." Of course, they always got the accent wrong as well, but that's
Is,
like
so,
a really
but is that that's a term of derogatory? Like that's not a that's like a bad term in Australia? I don't know.
no, it is. It's a
very well.
derogatory
Oh, okay.
term.
So sort of like an offensive term to say.
Yes, and so and literally depicted as this dirt. It looks like something from the Wild West, like this dirt-ridden town with dusty roads.
Yeah, but Dane,
and
that was Sydney in the 80s. That's how Sydney was in the 80s, right?
that's how Americans think Sydney was in
Yeah.
the 80s. But Sydney's
Yeah, of course.
a
Yeah.
huge city, and the funny thing was, like, when I went to Kamloops, right, where Alex lives, Kamloops is
Beautiful
basically a
place.
desert. They film a lot of, like, if they set a movie in Afghanistan, like the A-Team movie, if they have something set in Afghanistan, and they usually film it in Kamloops because it looks very similar. Kamloops is basically a desert. And I asked Alex, I said, can you drive me out to the desert out there? I want to take a photo and stuff. And he did, and he thought, you were born in Australia. You should know this shouldn't be
Yeah.
your first desert. But of course, the big misunderstanding is that 90% of the population in Australia lives along the coast, coastal residents. I had never really seen a desert in my life. I've never been to what people call the outback and stuff.
Haven't you been to New South Wales, mate?
Well, that's where I was born.
I'm just being
But I mean, like Sydney, it's very much like it's changed so much because I haven't lived there for half my life. But when it's big solar skyscrapers, but there's a lot of colonial architecture and stuff there. But
So, but
yeah,
do you go back to Australia to like check out? Do you go to like the quote unquote outback or wherever the desert is? Have you?
no,
have you done it?
I've still never been.
Why? Why, mate?
Just haven't. I mean, I only go there to visit my parents.
Okay, you don't really explore
that-
Australia. Eh? It seems like such an interesting place to explore.
Yeah, I mean, I have a complicated relationship with Australia, I think. But yeah, well, anyway, back to the Karate Kid cartoon.
I want to talk about Australia.
Well, we are.
I'm just being
okay,
a dick. Okay, go ahead.
every cartoon had the episode where they go to Australia, but yeah, the
Yes.
Karate Kid one was the worst offender, and it would like
I'm
both
an
hilarious and
mate.
offensive. Yeah, literally, that was the other thing. Sydney had like in the Karate Kid cartoon, Sydney had an occasional white face, and everyone else was an Aboriginal. And
Interesting.
while that would be very nice, unfortunately, if you know the history, that is most certainly not the case. I mean, I don't even think I had seen a face-to-face Aboriginal until I was 10.
Oh, really?
So, well, I probably had friends that were of mixed Aboriginal heritage in retrospect. But, asking about Australian cartoons, yes, there was Dot and the Kangaroo, like this character Dot, and there was, is Willow the Wisp Australian or is that British? I can't remember. And there was...
That is a British show, sir.
Okay, well, there was Dot and the Kangaroo, but that was very much like... I think for a lot of those ones, they overdo the Australiana for their foreign markets. But there was Blinky Bill, which was about a koala. So, yeah, and I still
Okay.
remember the song for that. Hey, hey, Blinky Bill, save us from that wood chip mill. If you don't, no one will. Good old Blinky Bill, But
Okay, well that's interesting. So, the shows were more kind of a simple juvenile sort of for the kids, sort of fun-loving kind of. Okay.
pretty, at least pretty much. I'm sure. Oh, the Magic Pudding, of course, which is based on Norman Lindsay, like he had a puppet show. There was an animated film of that Magic Pudding. And yeah, I'm just trying to think.
So it was all a bit shit, mate.
Well, actually, this is something I've never revealed to people, but
Well,
there
let's
used to
reveal
be a Disney Studios in Sydney. There was a
Oh,
Disney
cool.
Studios in
I didn't
Sydney.
know that. Okay.
Yeah, well,
interesting.
all the Disney animated TV shows were actually done in the Sydney studios.
Oh, interesting. I had no clue. Cool.
The only one that they had, the only film that they had any involvement in, like usually the films were done in America. They also had Disney Studios Japan, but the only film that they got involved in apparently was the film of the Goofy movie. Yeah, apparently the Australian studio did some work there. But I actually got some cells from the Aladdin TV show and the like the Timon and Pumbaa TV show. I got some old cells from that.
Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, that was in Sydney. Lots of anime fans. Almost everyone in the in-betweening department had, posters all over the wall and stuff. And one guy was really into Devilman. He gave me his Devilman sketch. So,
And
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 why
so
was I?
so you went there to see like on a tour, or how did you?
It was basically like work experience, but
Oh,
um,
cool. Well, that sounds pretty
so
interesting.
I was, yeah, I that was put into the in-betweening department and also the inking department. But the problem is I'm an artistic person, but I I'm not very good at actual, like I'm probably better at digital art and conceptual art and stuff. But yeah, in betweening I was not so good at, and also the inking. I've got shaky hands as it is, and learning what went into the process of coloring animation cells. Oh my goodness, back in
Well,
this is
that's
the
sort of
pre-digital
interesting.
era.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of
How
that's
they have to mix
yeah,
the colors and
that's really cool. Yeah. Well, I like some Disney. Like it's fun, it's cute, and it's some really good animation. Yeah.
yeah. So but yeah, in terms of other Australian animation, I'd really have to look into that.
But you were
Um,
saying during the non-ratings time in Australia, Galactic Patrol Lensman was actually on the TV.
yes, it was. Yeah, I don't know if anything was censored. It was dubbed, obviously, but and I and I just thought, oh my gosh, Lensman is on TV, because at that stage I'd already seen the film and I really loved that film, and I was just excited. And a lot of the TV series is just like it's a retelling of the film plus extra stuff.
Hmm.
But the problem is that the estate of the is it L. Doc Smith or E. Doc Smith, I think, the
Yes.
original
Yeah.
creator of
Hmm.
Lensman, that estate really had the shits with the film and like basically the Japanese adaptations, because as Anime World Order said, it's a brilliant, like, well, I don't know if they use those words, I'm paraphrasing, but it's a great film or a good film, but a terrible adaptation in terms of fidelity to the original material.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, I like I would be so happy for it to come out. The problem is that yeah, the film, obviously we don't have. I don't think a Blu-ray is ever going to come out because the estate, forbid it perhaps, or revoked the rights. I'm
Oh,
not
did
sure.
they?
I'm
Yeah.
not a lawyer, obviously, but the TV series is even harder because some of it, it's basically TV rips from when it aired on TV.
Well, there
So
was some.
Hey, hey, Blinky Bill, save us from that wood chip mill. If you don't do it, no one will. Good old Blinky Bill. Hey, hey, Blinky Bill, get in there and fight until...
I think there was some like it came out on beta, and I think it came out on Laserdisc too. Some of
I
it.
think some select episodes. It's very much
Yeah.
like,
But they did that
way
a
back
lot
when
on
you,
Laserdisc. They'd only release like they would take out the filler arc and just release the
yeah.
main story.
Well, Mighty
That's
Orbots is another example of something where we had a few really good quality ones and some that were just terrible TV rips. And
yeah. What a great
thank,
show.
and like you reviewed that, and I ended up watching it, and I like fell in love with that show. The animation is amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
like the story isn't good. The story's dumb, but the animation's just so great. Yeah,
yeah,
it's an awesome.
and,
It's just nice to look at. It's like Odin. You watch it just to look at it.
and
You know?
there's a lot of co-productions that I'd like to get into as well, because a lot of these 80s cartoons were obviously made with or animated by Japanese studios and
Yeah,
with
just
various levels of control. But Mighty
just
Orbot's got an official DVD release, which is cool.
did it. It did now, eh?
Yep, it did.
Yeah, and
Yep, you
if
can.
you look at the bike of the one professor in Orbots, it's just like cobras. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
It's
Well, same
awesome.
director. Can you like
Yeah,
wrap your head
exactly.
around
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
yeah. And
So
Godmore's to the max. It's like
yeah,
let's redo Godmore's. Godmore's is a much better show, but Orbots is an amazing animated experience. I love it. I
yeah.
remember
I
watching
mean,
it when it was on TV.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm just glad that that's all out again for archival purposes.
Do you have that?
Um,
The DVD rips?
I've got the rips. I would like to actually buy the DVD
Cool. Yeah.
because I'm really getting into collecting these days. But yes, so Mighty Orbots is out now. So
Yeah. So, anyways, M Subs is a group that I love. I mean, some of the shows they're working on right now, Metal Armor Dragnet, which is an awesome show, and
I can't believe that's finally getting properly fan subbed. It was just
yeah,
bootleg rips before.
yeah, and that's an awesome show. That was kind of like going to be the new Gundam, but it's
Yep.
sort of a cool show. Definitely check that out. And also, like I said, I recommend checking out Galaxy Patrol Lensman, the film, and also the TV series. I'm holding off because I want to watch the whole TV series at once, but man, that's amazing. So that's definitely my fan subbing group of the week. I mean, my fan subbing group of the show is definitely M Subs. They always put
Yep.
out quality work and interesting work, so definitely check out M Subs. I love those guys. And Inca Subs is another great group. You can't go
Yep.
wrong with Inca Subs and M Subs. Those are two great recommendations.
And
Support
by the
those
way,
guys. Yeah.
they Manly Subs started on Dayton 3, and M Subs finished it off. So it's the M Subs that I'm using for the Blu-ray rips of Dayton 3. So
Yeah,
you
so
know,
much great releases. Like they're,
yeah,
they're, they're a great group, man.
yeah,
I really
absolutely.
like them. So
And yeah, they did El Game as well, which I haven't watched yet, but would love to.
oh man, I love that. This is a fun show. That's right up your alley.
Oh, for sure. I
I
can
challenge
tell.
you. I challenge you. Watch Heavy Metal All Game definitely and do a review. It's great. And of
Yeah,
course
and
they
I
did
want to watch
Leisner.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only watched the OVAs, and I don't know, like a button, because I don't know, there was just maybe in my 30s I was too impatient, I don't know, but I was, a button switched in my head, and I suddenly loved these long running mecha shows, whereas, I remember complaining like 10 years ago, oh, Zeta Gundam, oh, it's so slow, they do this, they do, and then I just sort of, a tomato button switched in my head, and I suddenly loved it, so I'm sure the same would be for Leisner as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting how that works. It's interesting how perception changes your view on a show.
yeah,
It's almost like
definitely.
you appreciate it on a different level, and then it just enhances the good parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like I had this period where yeah, a man having a period. It was really no. I mean, I had this period of
Dum-dum.
time
Mhm.
where I was suddenly watching He-Man and She-Ra. Unironically, I was like really enjoying it because, and I think Roger Ebert said it best. Like I think he was reviewing Gamera or something, and he said, no, he said there's a time when, you know, in adulthood when you realize that Citizen Kane is the best movie, it's the greatest movie, but then later on, and then you're embarrassed about how much you loved something like Gamera. But then, as you get older, you change again, and then you realize that Citizen Kane might be the best movie, but damn it, you love Gamera more. And
Yeah.
He-Man was the same thing. Like that was something like I watched it again in my 20s, with a nostalgic feeling, and I was like, this is retarded. And
Yeah.
then
Hmm.
suddenly, another 10 years later, I appreciated it on many different levels, like the world design, the
Yeah.
80s-ness of it as well. But and She-Ra even, like She-Ra, like I have an older sister, so I'm not like, it's for girls,
Sure,
I don't,
Dane. Why don't you just tell the truth? You watched She-Ra.
I did, I
Don't
did.
blame it on your sister.
I owned the Gem box set as well. I mean,
Oh, that's another cool one. Yeah. No, I totally know what you mean, Dane. It's like that's the great thing about animation is you appreciate it on so many levels, like aesthetically, just like you said, the world building, the colors.
yeah,
Watching He-Man on the big screen is like, oh man, that's fun. You
yeah,
know? Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And and someone sent me a video the other day. It was like a He-Man concert in somewhere in Latin America,
Cool.
and
El universo ya está protegido por el poder de Grayskull. Con secretos poderes desde nunca.
people like there's the Spanish version, He-Man, and the audience were just so happy and having so much fun. And
Yeah.
it's something that people still have a big affection for, and it's hard not to, not to be infected by that, for lack of a
Yeah,
better
and
word.
He-Man's it's really too bad because He-Man's one of those franchises where you don't fix what's not broken. Like they could have taken He-Man and just made it kept it fun and just like I always say, like why take these old shows and change them into something they're not? Why not just enhance what was great about the show?
Yeah.
Like what I would love to see is like when you read those old He-Man comics, like the art
Oh yeah, yeah.
that came with the toys. Imagine doing a series that looked like that like today.
Apparently,
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Kevin Smith. I mean, and I'm not necessarily a huge fan of him, but apparently he's working on some new Masters of the Universe animations
Hmm.
that are meant to follow the original '80s one. So
Well,
it's called Masters of the Universe Revelation. It's going to be like a mini series. I think it's a Netflix one.
I
Uh,
hope they embrace the what made the old show great. I hope they don't go the quote unquote anime style or a modern style. I hope they just really emphasize that high fantasy, the big like how it used to look. Like that would be cool.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, what?
Thundercats, great example. Wreck Thundercats. Just I don't know.
The production IG one. Yeah, you see, the thing
Yeah.
is, I
It's
was
good.
a Silverhawks
It's a better
guy.
show, but
I was a Silverhawks guy, so
that's
I'd never
see, you're
watched.
crazy. Silverhawks, Christmas, summer. Christmas is summer. You're watching Silverhawks. Everything's backwards. What's going on, sir?
A Silverhawks has an awesome opener as well. Okay, so as promised, we are going to review the 1990 OVA together this time of Heavy.
Yeah, and I've only just watched this tonight for the first time, so I'm definitely just the sidekick on this review. But it's kind of fun to kind of hit the ground running, and I can definitely see why this is an OVA. Was this an OVA? Or this was a straight up theatrical movie?
It says movie, but I'm almost certain it's an OVA. From often they would screen the OVA in a few select cinemas just so that it could be sort of classified as a movie. But overall, yeah, it's an
Or
OVA.
sometimes they would group them up so movies would play together, right? So that could
Yeah,
be.
that's right.
So
But judging by the production designs, this didn't feel like it was something that was made for a theatrical release.
yeah, and I remember Heavy, like always going through, because like you, I was always looking for those '80s gems, sort of like looking for the undiscovered, interesting, unique OVAs of the '80s or movies from the '80s, and going through VHS covers, I always did see this cover, and I always thought, oh, that looks interesting,
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a cover that, no pun intended, pops out at you because it's a guy punching someone and his eyes flying out. And I'd heard about this for a few years ago, but for some reason, maybe it was miscredited or something, but I thought Ichiro Itano was the director, and I mean, Ichiro Itano can be nihilistic and pessimistic at the best of times.
I could see why you
his
think
stuff
that,
is
yeah.
hit and miss.
Mhm.
But this was actually directed by the great and late Noboru
Yeah,
Ishiguro,
a great one. Yeah.
Astro Boy, amongst other things.
Oh yeah, one of the
Um,
best ever. I mean, a legend. I mean,
Yeah. And him and Toyo Ashida, who's also passed,
mhm.
are two examples of kind of those workhorse directors. Like, they'll direct some of the greatest things, but they'll also just direct something, maybe either because it's thrust upon them or, they want to just keep pumping stuff out. But, yeah, I mean, both of them are directors that I think people don't talk about enough.
Oh, and I mean, Noburu's. You just look at the work he's done; it's astounding. Like he's a legend. He's a master of anime, and he's one of the best ever. So yeah, definitely. As like Dane's saying, I think one of the things we're trying to get across on anime specific is if you're a new anime fan or you're just kind of really getting into anime, just like movies, it's good to know the directors or the creators so you can appreciate their body of work and see how great they really were. And definitely, if you want to look for the legends of anime, Noboru Ishiguro is definitely on that list without question.
Yeah.
He's one of the greats of all time. Yeah.
Yes, and there was actually, going back to our podcasting talk, there was an 80s OVA that he directed, and he was actually like the original creator of as well. Very, very much his baby, called Hoshi Neko Full House.
Oh yes.
Have you heard of that
Oh
one?
yes. Yeah. That's I love that OVA. It's that's an amazing one. I definitely would love to do a review on that on anime specific because that's one of those shows where when I was involved with Box fan subs, I was really rallying trying to get that as one of the projects. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to, but I had fought for that. But thank goodness that's out now. Yeah.
I'm very glad that came out, and that is very much his baby. Like he did the screenplay, and he was the original creator, director. Oh, and throwback to 3x3 Eyes last week. I praised the amazing soundtrack of that. Same composer, Kaoru Wada, who always does interesting stuff.
Oh yeah, yes.
So
yes, I do like that. The music was really interesting, and 3x3 Eyes, man. Listening to your review, I was like, damn, I gotta rewatch that. So cool.
Yeah, I mean
Just
the
so
OVA is
iconic.
at least.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's yeah. I mean, I'm just. Again, I would be happy if more, like with Ushio and Tora and all these old shows getting re-releases and stuff. It would be good to see a full 3x3 Eyes adaptation. But
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, it's probably more possible now than it ever was. But I don't know. Just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's really
But,
weird because it's like fan subbing in a way. It's not big like it once was. It's like but somehow we're spoiled. Like we're getting anything I wanted to see. It's getting fan subs, so it's like it's a great time to be an anime fan. It's also sort of like a kind of a bummed out time to be an anime fan. You know what I mean? It's like
I think,
yeah,
in a way, something like Crunchyroll, we kind of have Crunchyroll to thank in a way that now so many things are being subbed, so people are going into the well to get some older stuff.
yeah. Thank God. I'm glad that there's enough fans out there who are interested in going back and checking out some of the great works from the past. Because let's face it, I mean, at least in the last 15 years, I don't know, like the neat stuff definitely was during a certain period of time. Really, it's true.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, hopefully that'll change,
I mean,
you know? Yeah.
and again, as I said, like creatively and stylistically, thematically, it was much more geared towards genres that I enjoy more than a lot of high school stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
and to be sure, high school stuff has always been in there. But,
And even in the intent, the spirit, I don't know.
a lot of young animators
Yeah.
like heavily inspired by Blade Runner and Star Wars and wanting to one up each other.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
feel the wicked video game machines, did a lot of damage to the anime industry because, you know,
Well,
yeah,
I think
it
it's
did.
more that the anime industry did the damage to itself by underpaying and
Yeah.
overworking, exploiting the staff. And it's just that, although of course the video game industry is not that much better, but I'm sure it is at least better.
Yeah.
Um,
Things
but
change, yeah, that's for sure.
yep.
But oh
So
man.
in regards to Heavy, though, Heavy is actually based on a 9-volume manga by Murakami, Motoka Murakami.
So
who,
there is a manga on this. Okay, I didn't know that.
There
Okay.
is, yes. It was a 9-volume manga, and for those of you that don't know, Murakami was the creator of Jin, which Jin about the doctor that goes back in time, and that was like a 20-volume manga, and that was really popular, especially in Asia.
Yeah.
And the J drama, I actually reviewed that on Anime Pacific. That ranks as one of the best TV shows I've seen in my life.
That's not
animated or
anime,
not. That was-
Dane.
I know it's not, but
That doesn't count.
based on a manga.
Yeah, I'm just joking.
But that's what, like, as a TV show, it was just like, it was phenomenal. It
Interesting.
blew me away. And prior to that, like, Murakami mostly dabbled in sports stuff.
Yeah, I
So,
noticed
like-
that. Like a lot of his emphasis is on sports. Like that show he has, Musashi no Ken. I have that show. That's been fan subbed.
Yeah, that was his big hit in the 80s.
Yeah.
And
It's a nice show.
that-
Nice character design, and again another 80s tastic. Yeah.
yeah, and like how, like, the influence of Slam Dunk on basketball in Asia cannot be overstated,
Mm-hmm.
like, at all, because it had a huge influence. Musashi no Ken didn't necessarily like do the same for kendo, but it definitely, there was a resurgence in interest in kendo thanks to that. I mean, even like overseas, there was a bit of a, like, I was always interested in learning kendo. I still kind of am, but now I'm a 40-year-old man. I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Hey, 40's the new 30, man. Come on, you can do it.
Yeah, well, I always tell myself, when Arnold Schwarzenegger made like Predator and stuff, he was basically 40.
Yeah.
So,
I think that'd be cool.
there's,
And
there's hope.
yeah, and that show, I really like the character designs are so nice on that show. That's a really cool show. I don't know if have you seen Musashi no Ken?
I've seen it on TV in Japan,
Okay.
where it was re-airing, and I mean, I liked what I had seen.
Yeah, it's a fun show. It's a fun show, and I really like the character design. So I recommend that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So so I mean, so Jin was sort of quite different from his other stuff,
Mhm.
and then Heavy is more in line with his sports stuff. Now,
That's kind of weird. That's
when-
kind of weird that he's based on sports. Is that did he just get into that niche because of like the mangas he's writing for, or is this guy just really like into sports? Weird.
it's a lot like editors hold a lot of sway
Mm.
in terms of what they're at. So wherever he was writing it, he might have been told that they need more sports things, or sports is hot.
It's just like in Japan when you get a job, it's your job for life. You're like, you're the sports manga guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Great.
but I mean, again, with Jin, he's definitely, fallen out of that
That's sort of his.
out of that pigeonhole.
Mhm.
So, yeah, but the thing, like, is Heavy is based on, from what I'm told, most of the first volume, and it's very much one of those OVAs that are meant to introduce you to the manga. Unfortunately, the manga, it's not one that is, you cannot find reprints and stuff of it easily. It's relatively forgotten.
Yeah, it's one of those mangas that probably did moderately good in Japan, and then it just sort of went to the wayside, and that's it. Hey,
Yep, that's right.
because I didn't hear much about Heavy, so and I didn't know about the manga, so yeah.
No, I had to sort of research this a little bit. Like I as I mentioned, I bought the OVA book from Japan.
Okay,
which
yeah.
I've got to translate it, but it's there's some really good tidbits and information and stuff in
And
there.
was Heavy in that book? Was Heavy in that book?
Oh yeah, every single OVA created between like 1983 and 1996 or something is mentioned.
And is this including the genre hentai genre or just anime?
It would include something that's I guess you could say borderline.
Okay, so that's an
I mean,
awesome.
Violence Jack.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's a cool book. I would prefer it without like. So that's cool because it's just cool to get the OVAs of the 80s. Just that'd be awesome. Straight up
Yep,
anime.
so-
Cool. That book looks so cool.
Yeah, so-
Yeah. And one question I had for you before we continue
Yep.
is, what
Okay.
year did the manga come out? Do you know? For Heavy?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I'm
I
just curious because I know
think-
this came out in 1990, right? This
Yes,
OVA. So
the-
I'm just curious. Probably in the 80s sometime.
Yeah, I believe that it came out yes in the late 80s. You know what? I'll look it up
Well,
now and I'll edit my review.
If you look up on Anime News Network here, they don't even list it.
That's right. Yeah,
the fuck?
you got to.
That's crazy. So it's not even listed
so-
in his work here. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking at Heavy. Okay, yes. So Heavy began in 1989.
Okay.
Yep. So it was still new when the anime sort of came in production pretty much straight away.
Okay. Interesting. So
So,
this, so
yeah,
this
it
was,
only really covers.
so this was a work of the 90s, and this movie was sort of like an introduction to get you introduced, and then get
Yeah.
you reading the manga, which often is the case with a lot of OVAs. You can be less
Yes.
sort of disappointed because the story's not finished. You're like, is there a part two? And they're like, no, this is it. You're like, oh man, like this happens many a
Yeah.
time. I mean, I think the Mermaid Scar OVAs, if I remember correctly, did that.
Yes.
Often the case,
Yeah,
Mm.
but I think this one, it tells enough of a complete story that you're relatively satisfied. And like, to be sure, I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would because I'm not a big sports guy, especially boxing.
Mhm.
But and
When I watched this, when I first started it, I was like, this is Kenshiro before the nuclear bomb. This is Kenshiro growing
yeah,
up. Yeah.
and there's also obviously there's a lot of Rocky parallels, especially
yeah.
when he's jogging and wearing the suit and stuff. Although this is set in New York, and it deals with some issues and some things that might through the view of through the lens of contemporary times might seem a bit old-fashioned or politically incorrect. But I mean, in some ways, that's also the appeal of some of this older stuff.
Yes.
But-
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's about a guy called Guy who apparently, according to the story, he was sort of destitute with his dad, right? Like him and his dad were destitute, and he was always called a yellow Jap. Because later on, he fights this guy from Harlem and said, I'm just like you. You were called, you were called the N-word, and I was called a Jap, and look,
So from what I
Uh,
gather, they're from Japan, and they travel
Yeah.
to America, and it's like hard up. Apparently, from their road trip,
Yeah.
I could tell they're hard up from their road trip, where he learns the life lesson of you feed the dog to the puppy. It's like, watch, son,
That's
learn
right.
about life. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, when the story opens, there's this guy who is apparently like this boxing god, like he's this agent called Alex Gordon, and he hears about a karate guy and a wrestler fighting, like two high schools fighting. Apparently, the high schools have this championship where they settle their differences through a fight, and
Yeah,
he watches this guy called
I love how their idea of America in the 1990s, like two rival high schools, they have this big fight and there's like big crowds. Like if it would be like this in
Yeah.
America, it's like it's interesting to see, like you said before in our past show, it's cool to see Japanese perceptions of America, and like it's really neat to see
Oh,
it during
absolutely.
that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that sort of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, it is. It's definitely interesting to see. And yeah, so Alex Gordon sort of goes to this game, and Guy kicks the ass of this big wrestler, and he wants to follow Guy home and tell him, hey, why don't you try out boxing? And Guy is the sort of stubborn, stoic Japanese guy.
And he's a karate master. Don't forget that part.
His dad runs a dojo, although his dad now is this huge drunk, and really Guy is the main teacher there. But when he's asking him, propositioning him to become a boxer, so there's this lady calling for help, and Alex Gordon says, "Oh, we've got a helper," and Guy says, if you want to stay alive in this town, you should just let it go. And
you must do the Japanese way. Say nothing. Do nothing.
Yeah. And those guys are infamous in this part of town. And then, of course, Alex Gordon says, but I'm an American. I can't leave a lady in distress.
that was an interesting line. He's like, I'm an American. I'll fight no matter what for what's right.
Of course.
Yeah, that was interesting.
If he really did go on his own, he would have been killed. It was basically Guy that saved the day. And it should be mentioned that at the start of the episode, it starts out with Alex Gordon getting the news that he has like a brain tumor or cancer of the brain.
Yeah.
Like he's got about a year left to go.
Yeah, and he's tortured by a dream where he sees a new fighter, and that fighter happens to be Guy fighting his old fighter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
His old fighter, who I presume died, is being fought by by Guy. And he's, that's the guy from my dreams.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how in the 80s, in the 90s, Japan has this sort of love-hate for America. Like, a lot of the OVAs are criticizing America, but a lot of them are kind of worshiping America, like Hollywood movies. It's sort of interesting to see that in Japan, hey?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. And so, so of course, Guy can't really leave Alex on his own, so he punches through the wall and comes through and then fights the three guys, and that's where the infamous eyeball getting punched out scene happens.
Yeah, and this show has a lot of great 80s-tastic music and action scenes. I felt a lot of Hokuno no Ken vibes here. Definitely, if you're a fan of Fist of the North Star, you'll like this. Yeah.
And so, and that was, that was definitely entertaining. And of course, this is just furthered Alex Gordon's resolve. And also the lady, basically a prostitute called Lily, she kind of falls in love with Guy. And also she's like really thankful to Alex Gordon as well. So she sort of becomes the character that's always rooting for Guy.
Yes.
And so eventually what happens is Alex Gordon goes to Guy's dojo, and then they meet Ryu, who's Guy's father, who's this massive drunk and just a big embarrassment. And he says to Ryu, please ask your son to learn boxing. And he said he's going to inherit the dojo. He doesn't care about boxing. And of course, some guys related to the thugs are looking for Guy. So they see Alex and Lily. They kidnap Lily, and they've got to and Lily brings them to where they are, against her will and stuff. And then basically what happens is Ryu, that's Guy's father, gets blasted in the head. He gets shot in the head.
Graphically.
Graphically.
Yeah,
shot
this show definitely is classic 90s violence.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Nothing left to the imagination. Although, at the same time, there is a certain restraint and artistry to it. That might be Ishiguro.
This show is definitely, it has some sort of like cutting edge, sort of modern ideas. Like, it's brave. It brings up things like AIDS or racial tension or even sexual, gays have feelings too, And
they do.
Yeah, so I mean, it does show a lot of for the time. It had a lot of modern concepts, but it also has a lot of tropes, 80s tropes to the max here. I know this is a 90s, but It has that kind of 80s vibe.
Oh yeah, it's very much a product of the 80s.
Yeah,
and of course, Ryu, he doesn't die. He's basically stuck in a coma, and America being America, there's exorbitant medical fees that he has to pay for. So
true.
Alex basically says, I'm going to pay for your father's, care and stuff, but please become a champion. You can be a champion within 1 year.
Is that what he says? Okay, he's going to pay for it for a year?
No, he doesn't sort of say, after a year, your dad's dead. He just sort of said he's been paying for Ryu's medical care up to now.
Because from what I remember, Alex said to Guy, you don't want to box, but you need the money, so
Yeah.
use your hands to keep your father alive. And finally, guy's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'll
But I mean,
become a
up to- yeah, because-
prostitute. Because he compares
Yeah.
boxing to being a prostitute. You use your body to please others with nothing in return.
Yeah, but you no pleasure for you. That's
And when he asks Guy
Some
what he
classic
wants to be,
lines.
Guy says, I want to be an accountant. That was awesome.
yeah. It's that yeah. So
Accountants everywhere in Japan were like, yeah. I know
Yeah, that's
right
right.
now, as we're speaking, there's an accountant in Tokyo who has a statue of Guy punching that guy in the eye on his desk. And I love that guy. I know
Yeah.
you're out there somewhere.
except the eye is like a dollar sign or something. Yeah.
Oh,
But,
that was awesome. This has some great
yeah.
lines. This has some great violence, and it's
Yeah.
definitely fun. It's
great-
fun, and
Manly drama.
and it's just fun to see the Japanese take on, just like California Crisis, seeing their take on California. Now we get to see their take on Manhattan, on New York City. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it's
a lot of fun.
and you get times where things are represented at least well, not necessarily accurate, but well, like it captures a certain spirit. But then you get things like Future Police Urashimon, where they go to Chicago and it literally looks like Miami. There's giant palm trees and stuff. Chicago ain't Miami, guys. But so basically when Guy starts learning, Alex says, I'm going to need a real champ to train you up. And the best trainer is this guy called Lucky Roman.
Yes.
And Lucky comes in.
He looks like,
and
you know what? Again, another Hokuto no Ken. It looks like he just came out of the wasteland. He's put on a skirt and a fur hat.
That's
He's chiseled. He's a chiseled god. He just
And he's basically a transvestite. I'm using terminology from the time. And they're fighting. He bleeds. He does the Degrassi Junior High thing. Do you remember when Joey Jeremiah fought that bully who had AIDS or had HIV?
Oh yes.
In Degrassi, don't touch me, man. He sort of says to all the boxers, hey, stay back. I'm sorry, guys, I didn't tell you. I have AIDS.
Yeah, that's a kicker. He has AIDS. He's Lucky Roman. He's a former light heavyweight champion, and he's down and out. And he said he can't train Guy because he has AIDS. But he does inform the gym guys that he said, "Don't worry, I'll disinfect everything before I leave. Get the bleach wipes."
Yeah, I mean, I remember being a kid in 1990, and kids would say, "Oh, don't touch that paper, you might get AIDS."
Well, I mean, really, AIDS didn't really come to the picture to the mainstream until about 1986 is where they really started talking about AIDS. So this is sort of a time of where, AIDS was definitely, a monster. It's.
Oh yeah, and to Asians, AIDS very much was an American disease, kind of.
Yeah.
In their mindset, obviously, that's not true, but yes. So Lucky is also, he's on borrowed time, just like Alex Gordon. So they both want to,
and I think,
mold him into this champion.
And I think really Alex goes to talk to Lucky Roman, and Lucky Roman first denies training Guy. But I think the thing that really changes Lucky Roman's mind is when he finds out that Guy is also dying. He has cancer, and it's like the one last dream. This show has
Alex has cancer.
Yeah, Alex has cancer, not Sarakapud. We're talking. Yeah, Alex King. And shout out. And this show again, Hokuto no Ken, the melodrama is high. There's moments in the show where you're like, whoa, this is a lot of melodrama. I love it.
I love it.
There's a lot of it. This is the Souther arc in Hokuto no Ken.
Yeah, a lot of manly tears and resolutions and stuff, and that's and see the thing about it. Yes, we've got a lot of these sort of characters like there's Lucky Roman, Alex Gordon, Lily, and then Mark Bailey, the African American guy from Harlem, and all these different characters. So what I like about it is, yes, it does. It tackles things like discrimination. I mean, I think Guy saying, I was called a yellow Jap, but Bailey, you were called, the N word, and we're brothers, you and I.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like the Japanese experience and the African American experience are not really alike.
Well, I mean, there is definitely, in regards to Asians, the Japanese did have a lot of issues in the United States because of the war. I mean,
absolutely. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that.
Even Vancouver. I mean, if you go to Vancouver, they have like Chinatown, this and that. And actually, I watched a documentary how there was at a time when they were going to actually make kind of like a Japanese area, like a Japanese.
Yep.
And that would have been really something so unique and cool for North America, but
Yeah, for sure.
because of racism, the Japanese in
Oh yeah,
Canada,
anti-Japanese sentiment.
yeah, and the
stuff.
Japanese in Vancouver really assimilated, kind of really gave up their Japanese culture. So a lot of the Japanese in Vancouver, they're really more like Canadians. They didn't really keep that mosaic like a lot of the other countries in
Oh
regards
yes.
to like
Yeah.
because that's so. But one criticism I do want to give this show is you can really
Mhm.
tell it's coming from a place of like these guys have never been to America and it's an experience they've never had, and it's sort of like they're sitting around a table and they're talking about it. It's definitely a Japanese perspective, which is interesting and weird, but also some of the things like are could be offensive. Like they go to Harlem and he loses a fight and they're like, they're gonna kill us, they're gonna kill us all. Like if you go to
Yeah.
Harlem and you're in a boxing match and you lose, black people aren't gonna kill you, right? But I guess it's supposed to be like shady, sort of an underground, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think these days, like, I went to Harlem ages ago,
Yeah.
but even then, like, it was like, you know, soybean coffee for $12 or
Yeah.
something. But, you know, a lot of gentrification and stuff. But I think what I was trying to say was that, like, someone born, like, guy was born in Japan, apparently, you know, born in a first world country, he didn't have the legacy of slavery and all sorts of, you know, terrible stuff that African Americans had to endure. So I'm just saying it's not, you know, it's not quite the same. But however, like, you know,
Yeah,
you've
and
got
again,
racial
and
discrimination.
again, such a Japanese perspective to take that route. Hey, it's like it's so ironic because the Japanese are like some of the most terrible. Their history is just terrible and atrocious to like China or to Korea
I
or
lived
Philippines.
in former Manchuria,
Yeah,
and
it's appalling.
yeah, I mean, what they did,
Oh,
like you would lose sleep, and at least like Germans can say, you know, I was a German soldier, I was not a Nazi, I never knew about that, but this was, you know, little Goro's grandfather, who's this now a cuddly old Japanese guy, you know, he could very well have, you know, raped 50 ladies with his bayonet, done terrible things.
in relation to this, I know it's off topic, but if you guys listen to podcasts, there's a podcast called Hardcore History, and
Oh yeah, Dan Carlin.
yeah, and currently he's doing a series of episodes called Supernova in the East, and it's talking about Japan and the war. And the last episode
Oh yeah.
is covering this topic actually, and it's quite interesting how the generals manipulated the soldiers to do really, really atrocious things because they wanted to sort of set up a tit for tat situation where if they did really atrocious things to the Australians, to the Americans, then the Australians and Americans, if they ever caught a Japanese, they would do terrible things to them. And it was set up so the Japanese would never surrender. So a lot of the things the Japanese soldiers did is atrocious, but it's sort of a crazy setup by the powers that be to make it that way, which is sort of crazy. Only in Japan, eh? Oh. But again, it's interesting to see the Japanese perspective on America and them trying to touch racism, but it's sort of off because they've never really been to America. That's an interesting kind of weird world. It makes it interesting on its own. Yeah.
But what I do like is that the humanity of Murakami's stuff does shine through.
Oh
like,
yes.
Okay, we're dealing with racism, AIDS, prostitution, homosexuality.
Yeah.
You know, all hot topics, and you know.
Yes, one thing that is good is he does show the perspective of the negative, but then he does show the perspective of the individual as a human being with feelings.
Yeah, they're all humanized.
They're humanized, yes.
They're not tokenized or dehumanized.
That is
or
true.
anything.
That is true. Yep.
Yeah. And like Lily is her own character, and there's many admirable traits. You know, she's not the quote unquote the whore. You know, she's not, you know, an archetype, or at least, you know, she's got agency and stuff. And Don Bailey, who the black boxing guy, you know, he's got his own trials and histories.
Yeah, I mean,
and Lucky.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was saying, you know, Lucky. Again, you know, it's a little bit like, you know, back when people thought AIDS was like this radioactive disease that emitted from homosexuals, but still, I mean, yeah, Lucky's a guy that dresses like a woman, clearly gay, but he, you know, Murakami respects the character and treats him with respect and, you know, dignity. So I think although like I think he means well in the end, and that's what matters. I think he does mean well. Anything that might seem outdated, it's not. I can forgive him for that. I think his heart's in the right place, and there is a humanity that shines through a lot of his work, and I think you can feel that through this adaptation. So
Yes, I mean,
that's one thing I did like.
the quality of the Japanese, or the interesting about Japanese is they sometimes can be very, very sensitive, very, very sensitive. A lot of female energy in regards to a lot of emotion, very controlled, very suppressed, but a lot of emotion. They can have a real sensitivity, and they can have a real rah. So that's sort of an interesting.
Yeah.
That's one of the interesting things about Japanese culture, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so like on the production side, yes, directed by Noboru Ishiguro, the character designs were, they like a bit. Some of the animation was a little bit off sometimes, and it was like a production by Artland, who have been around forever, but they generally kind of do production assistance and in between stuff. They're generally like a more of a mercenary thing, but this is one where it was sort of, they were the main party behind it.
Yeah,
So,
I would say I would say quality-wise, it's middle of the road. I think that's a fair assessment. Middle of the road for the standards of the time. A lot of quality people working on this show. I mean, nice coloring, nice character design. But like you said, you can see maybe they're working with what they have, So middle of the road, I'd say, but very, very passable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I assume the manga would follow a similar, in a similar way to what the episode did. It's very much like, okay, Don Bailey, that's his first big opponent. You're my opponent, but the fight is more to understand each other as human beings.
Yes,
it's not.
yeah.
I'm just going to destroy this
You know
guy.
what? That is a really interesting thing, and a unique thing about Heavy is during the fight, you're going through the story of both fighters as they fight, showing their struggle in life and kind of correlating to their fight in the ring. And that was quite a charming part of the story, which I really liked.
Yeah.
And showing how the two fighters had more in common than they did differently. And I think that's true for all people of the world. So that is definitely a charming and endearing part of the story. My biggest criticism of Heavy, I would say, is not enough time. The end is a little rushed because not enough time, and really the story has just begun. And for us watching it now, this is all we're going to get. So in that way, I was disappointed because, like you said, this would be really interesting to see the full story. If this was a television series, that would be really an interesting series. Like, I would definitely be interested in continuing watching this. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the chances of that happening would be relatively low. Although Murakami is still a name and still active. I just as cool as it would be, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I wonder if this was released internationally anywhere. Like if this had a French or Italian. I never heard about it. But,
Right. Well, so what I did was, the reason this has English subtitles is basically because someone posted a part of it on Twitter, and I sort of said, because I've known about it for a while, but I said, I didn't realize that there was it had come out online. So there was a Laserdisc rip online, and it turns out one group did translate it, a Chinese group, like mainland China. So
is there a lot of Chinese groups? Is there a lot of Chinese fan subbing groups?
Well, it's not much I know. I don't know much about it because obviously, like in mainland China, they use simplified Chinese, and in Hong Kong and Taiwan, they use traditional Chinese.
And they're speaking Mandarin there as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. In Hong Kong Cantonese, but obviously, if you
Taiwan
can read
Mandarin,
Chinese, it doesn't matter what language or dialect.
I did not know that.
So, but it seems that they, especially these days, there are more and more groups in China translating this stuff. So I use that as the basis for my translation. So it's not going to be perfect. I'm not one of those people that says,
Did you use outside resources? Did you get some, like a local speaker to help you with certain translations, or was it all your own translation?
A few little parts I got some people for. Like, one of the things was his name is Guy, right? And for a lot of the time, the subtitles kind of made it like, hey, this guy did this guy did that. And,
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it was almost like
Um,
their mistake in a way.
No, I think it was just the translator, because the translator doesn't necessarily know what's a name.
Oh,
And sometimes in Chinese, the names literally mean something, so
oh.
you know it,
That can be
it could
confusing.
translate
Yeah.
that way.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's probably a few mistakes in there, like Yonkers High School. That's probably Yonkers, I'm sure.
Yes.
But I tried to mitigate most of those.
Yeah. And
Um,
fine job, Dane. I know you were kind of hard on yourself, but I think anyone who watches this will agree it's very watchable. And this is,
yeah, that was the goal.
yeah, and honestly, pretty much, basically, this is a simple story. I mean, there's deep and sentimental parts, but pretty much this is a pretty simple story. And I think you did a spot on job. And I hope people will check out Heavy. I don't know, are you putting out a BitTorrent or are you just going to keep it on direct download?
Well,
You should put on, I would
yeah,
put on Nia Torrents. I mean, that's simple. It's not like Box. And
yeah,
maybe someone will put on, I mean, you should put this on Box,
yeah,
but I know you're like, oh, you don't want to deal with those guys. Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. But yeah, Mike Toole liked it when I posted this, so and Mike Toole,
An awesome
he
dude.
always
Yeah.
an awesome
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
and he has such a deep love for this sort of stuff. I know he loves so much stuff. There's some people would say, oh, so and so, or this sucked, and he always said, oh, I had a great time watching it, and I'm always jealous of people like that, that can enjoy stuff so much. But
I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed it because it was, for me, it's so fun when like like an undiscovered anime is finally discovered.
Yep.
Like I was so happy. I was like, oh man, this is a fun treat. Thank you, Dane. Thank you personally from me because it was really enjoyable for me to watch this. I thought it was great,
and it was just
you know.
it was cool to like I sat down and watched it and realized, oh, maybe I'm the first person in the world to watch this with English subtitles.
You know
So
what? That is probably true, and that is pretty cool. And that's pretty special, man. That's kind
yeah.
of neat, you know. Hopefully, you did that Chinese group fans have anything else, or did you look at their other work?
I haven't had a deep look, but yeah, I mean, I think if it's definitely one avenue to pursue if something's not being translated, not being subtitled and stuff.
Yeah.
Then
And
yeah, I mean,
that's a smart approach, Dane, because Japanese probably a challenge for you, but in living in Hong Kong, living in the Chinese realm, I mean, Chinese fan sub, that's a great way of getting it out. So who knows what else you could find? Maybe you could find Wingman. Bring us Wingman. Remember Wingman?
yeah. Well, I
I
did
know.
translate the first two
That's a
episodes.
cool
That was based on the
show.
French version.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I mean,
wish.
that's something
So cool.
I could look into. Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, yeah, overall, if I had to give a review of this show, I'd say it's definitely an undiscovered gem. Um,
Hmm.
it's a lot of fun. The music, the style, just seeing America, and a heartfelt story. But again, I was left wanting more, which is a
Yeah.
disappointment because this
The
is,
curse of
yeah,
the one-off over here.
because this would be a really good TV series, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Mm.
And funnily enough, like I said, I'm not in real life. I'm not a big sports fan, and boxing least of all. But having said that, there are so many good boxing anime that
Yeah, there is a really good tradition of boxing anime, which is interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of good
And
shows.
even the Megalobox. Have you seen that one? It's like a futuristic retelling of Ashton Joe.
No, I haven't seen it, but you know what? I've been meaning to.
Oh, it's so
It's
good.
very weird. I mean, who came up with
It's
that? But it's okay. I'm game.
that was like I just fell for that hook, line, and sinker. That was fantastic. It came out like on Netflix in Hong Kong,
Yeah,
so it
we'll
was
definitely have to review that.
fantastic.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Ashton Ojo,
really good show.
I believe, wasn't that was directed by
Dazaki again.
is it Tazaki?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
interesting.
A lot of the same team as Cobra, in fact.
Oh,
That's,
cool. Yeah, yeah, that's quite
yeah.
the show too. That's quite the show too.
Yes, it's a classic.
Yeah.
I've sat with the Ashton Ojo statue in Okinawa
Yeah.
several times.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Yeah, that's a really great
and
show. That's a show I need to go back and really take my time and watch. There's so many animes where I haven't watched them fully, or I haven't watched them in such a long time. And like you said about He-Man,
Yeah.
I would like to go back and just appreciate those shows. And that's one of the nice things about doing anime specific is it gives you a reason really to go back and just appreciate all those awesome shows that give them a rewatch
Yeah.
they deserve. And Ashton and Joe, if younger listeners, if you're out there and you haven't heard of Ashno Joe, that's really a classic. I would definitely, that's a high recommendation. Dizaki, another, wow, there's a big dog. One of our favorites. Hey, definitely.
And actually, the news just like because what happened was that about half of the series came out in HD, and then for some reason it just didn't finish. Like they didn't finish releasing the HD broadcasts, or I don't know.
And you're referring to what?
Ashton no
okay,
Joe.
Ashton no Joe, yeah.
Yeah, but it is one of the few anime that's getting a 4K version, and they're in the process of making sure the whole original TV series gets a 4K release, like a full-on 4K release. So the original Ashton no Joe is it's going to come out in 4K.
Oh, cool. Well, I mean, I remember during the time of like the early 2000s when we had all those like Hong Kong bootleg DVDs, and I bought the Ashton no Joe bootleg, and actually it's one of the better quality ones. It's pretty good. Like nice box, good subtitles, very watchable. It's not like when you watch the Fist of the North Star subtitles, you're like, what? It's like,
I
what
own
the
that
fuck?
box set.
You know, but
the classic when a guy like killed a woman to steal a chicken and or a rooster or something, and he's cooking it, and then Kenshiro comes up and says, "That cock is tasteful. You shall die, for you ate a cock." And it was just one of the best bad translations I ever read.
Yeah, it's watchable, but it's like crazy, hey? Yeah. That's the first way I watched Hakuno no Ken 2 was on the Hong Kong bootlegs. That was the only way. I mean, it was doable. I mean, those old Hong Kong bootlegs. The covers are kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, the thing about them is
they use the Laserdisc covers a lot. They were kind of cool.
Yeah, and often they were Laserdisc rips as well.
Yeah, so they weren't that bad. I mean, the translations were shit, but
yeah, because what they actually were was a lot of them were actually Malaysian bootlegs.
Oh, cool.
But it's just that Hong Kong became kind of a big hub for them.
You know what? I honestly love those bootlegs. I was able to watch shows translated that I never would be able to watch. I know it's like unethical, but I got to see some cool shows I'd never get to see translated at that time, you know? So I did enjoy them. Sorry, guys.
Because they pretty much vanished. They vanished pretty early on, like at least in Hong Kong. Although I always saw people buying them, and they were just still called Hong Kong bootlegs. But when I went to Malaysia, I saw quite a lot of them.
So, like, but did it used to be in Hong Kong? You could go to the store. Like, I remember you telling a story on Anime Pacific where there used to be like a full store of just bootlegs. That would have been cool. I mean, I know it's unethical, but man, it must have been. I would be like a kid in a candy shop, and I'd be like, oh, so much cool stuff.
Well, at the time, like, there was no way to get these things with any English subtitles at all. So it was really the only way to get any access to them. So yeah, I mean, in Mong Kok, it's like this big shopping area.
Mm-hmm.
There was this building, and up on the floors they had, like you can't buy bootlegs in the normal shops or
oh, you couldn't.
Oh
no, you couldn't. Okay.
No. Maybe in China at the time you could, but no, in Hong Kong it was always in these sort of makeshift kind of things that would get, and then the police would occasionally come in and they'd shut down and then reopen again in a different place.
Oh, so even in Hong Kong it was shady. Okay.
Oh, absolutely,
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I brought Alex there, and then there was this shopkeeper who was actually a she. And then Alex said, "I remember this guy. How are you, dude? What's up, man?"
Awesome.
Yeah.
Lucky Roman.
Yeah.
So, Dane, do you still have a lot of those old Hong Kong? I mean, not a lot of those old Malaysian/Chinese bootlegs in your collection?
Not really. No, I mean, I gave a lot of them away because, well, they have Chinese subtitles as well, so I gave them to a lot of friends here who hadn't seen stuff, and those because they were often like rips from Laserdiscs and better legit versions came out, or fan subs and stuff. And I
don't know if Triton of the Sea ever came out, fan sub wise, but the Chinese bootleg for that, the subtitles are pretty good, and that's a really good one.
Well,
so if you can't find that show, that's definitely a good way to watch it in English.
Yeah, Triton of the Sea, like also
has that been fan subbed?
I'm pretty sure it has.
Okay.
But
another neat show we'll have to cover sometime.
You
don't hear a lot of anime shows talking about that show, but another neat show, we'll definitely cover that. Anime Pacific, we're going to cover all the cool shows, man.
Okay, so Yeah, remember you can visit our website. I know not everyone visits podcast websites, but anyway, it's out there.
But you can.
You can leave a comment as well at animespecific.blogspot.com. We are on iTunes, we are on Spotify, and now we are also on YouTube as well. We have a little YouTube page, and now I'm also posting the YouTubes along with the shows, so you can see.
And Dane's done a great job. Yeah, Dane's done a great job, guys. Definitely check it out. It's a fun way of listening. It has some really cool animations. Great job, Dane. 100% Dane.
Thank you.
0% me. Thank you.
Well, and we certainly will release some YouTube exclusive content like videos and documentaries, commentary and stuff. So, even if YouTube is not your preferred way to listen to podcasts and stuff, you still might want to subscribe to us. So if you go to our website, you can there's a little YouTube icon on the right-hand side. You can just press on that and it'll take you straight to our channel.
Yeah,
so
but if you just search for Anime Specific, it does come up, and definitely it's really we're gonna do some really cool things that we maybe wouldn't do on the podcast because we have the visual aspect.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be something really neat. I hope you guys will come check it out. Like, subscribe, and share, please.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
That's right.
But overall, in closing, I just want to again say definitely check out Heavy. I mean, if you go to Dane's Twitter, you can find that on our website.
Yes, I will post a link, and I'll probably put the torrent up at some stage.
Yeah, I mean, old school anime fans, you definitely don't want to miss this one. It was great. It's really, really, really cool to see. So thanks, Dane, for giving me a new anime gem. And this is definitely an interesting, unique, and you can see there was definitely some passion put into this project.
Yep.
Yeah, there's definitely some feeling. Yeah, definitely something there.
Yeah, I think so too. So please, you can also email us at anniespecific@gmail.com. I was right. Am I right? Yes, anniespecific.
Yes.
You can email us there. We'd be happy to read your email on the show. And we did get...
any questions, recommendations, and old or new friends. Yeah, we did get one, yeah.
Yes, we got one from the Anime of Yesteryear podcast, but that was more of a sort of a podcaster-to-podcaster thing. But do check them out as well. They are one of many websites linked to us in our show notes. So you can also see the show notes at animespecific.blogspot.com. There's also a QR code on the left, which is really cool, but also kind of stupid to put on the website because the QR code is, if
why not?
You take a photo of it or you use your phone or whatever, and it'll direct you to our website. So probably better off to put that on Twitter or something. But
Hey, if I see some guy walking down the street, I'm like, hey, check out my podcast. He's like, I ain't got time. I'm like, quick, scan this. Boop. Hey?
I'll wear a T-shirt.
I'm in the grocery store. Scan this. Boop. What? What's up? What's on my till here? Why is Galvion on my till? Yeah.
I love it how the checkout guy knows who Galvion is. Oh wait, that's Galvion. What's he doing on my till? It's my kind of guy.
He's a cool guy.
Okay, I'm.
Hey, it's Exodor. He's working at my local grocery store. What? Shouts out. Yeah, but anyways, guys. Sorry,
I'm eating grapes.
Yeah, that's okay. Anyways, a fun show. And Dane, in closing, do you have any idea what you're going to be looking at next week, or is it open debate? I'm kind of open debate. I'm supposed to be covering Jettermars, but I keep delaying it because oh man, there's so many great stuff I want to review.
Yes, I know. Stuff does keep coming.
And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, it's a good idea not to say what you're going to review too far in advance because you might change your mind.
Yes, I'm leaning towards covering Aura Battle of Dunbine because.
Oh, excellent.
Because this will probably go into next episode's fan sub discussion, but the sequel OVA, another high quality 80s production, actually got fan subbed and Blu-ray rips.
Cool.
So I'd like to discuss that little franchise, another Tomino classic. So I'm edging towards that. Yeah.
Another Dane's with the unique shows, hey?
That's right.
The mainstream directors with their unique shows. That's definitely another unique show. That'll be fun. Well, you know what? I'll try to find something to match that, something interesting, unique myself. So to be determined on my part, but definitely join us then for another high quality episode of Anime Specific.
That's right. So until then, see you next time, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter. I will update the website and put our Twitter links there as well, which I haven't done yet, but by the time you hear this episode, it should be there. So until then,
and if you go to the YouTube channel and it doesn't look fancy, just wait. Dane's going to be working on that. It's going to be cool.
Yes, it'll get better day by day. Oh yes, I forgot the banner. Okay.
He's
Yes.
gonna work on it right now.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got an hour, Dane.
Okay. My daughter's got malnutrition, but who cares?
Yeah. Get her working on this website too. Okay.
She probably could actually. She's
Yeah.
she's really into animation now, and she's subscribed.
She can do the soundtrack. She can do a dramatic soundtrack for us.
She could
Yeah.
probably do the animation. She does better animation than I do, actually.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so until then, see you next time, everybody. Bye bye.
But by my side.